Howdy-ho, boys and girls. It's time for another interview with the Jeep Talk Show. We're going to be talking with old friend of the show, and I'm not talking about your age. You've just been on the show quite a bit, Jerry. We're going to be talking with Jerry Hubbard. And did I get it right? I just asked you how to pronounce it.
Yeah, you didn't get it right, but that's okay.
Hubert.
Jerry Hubert.
Hubert. I don't know why that's so hard. It's only like 5 letters, and I can't pronounce it. This is my problem. This is my albatross around my neck, Jerry. So Jerry, Jerry. So give the folks that haven't been here and haven't seen one of your, God, I think you've been on the show 4 or 5 times now, which I'm not complaining. It's always good to have you here. So to tell people who you are, what's your background, and especially about the Toledo Jeep Fest.
Basically, I'm a Jeep guy for a long time. I had the opportunity to work at and run the Jeep plant here in Toledo, the old plant, and about almost 10 years there as plant manager, and then moved around to a couple other jobs in Chrysler manufacturing, and then Daimler Chrysler, and as the continuation continues, I ended up in Canada at the Windsor plant for a couple of years. And then I retired in 2005 from the working style of the Jeep side. But I've been involved with, off-roading, a couple of Jeep clubs, and, a close-knit group of my friends and buddies from the working days that still get together and wrench when we can. And, this Jeep Fest has kind of filled a lot of time since 2016, when we actually got started. It was our first year.
I bet you that was an easy fit for you because you're dealing with Jeeps, but now you're having more fun. I mean, I know it's a lot of work. I know whenever the Toledo Jeep Fest is going on, you're very busy moving around doing things, but at least you get to stay involved with Jeep and, more importantly, the Jeep people.
Yeah, it was kind of a nice fit for me. 2016 was the 75th anniversary of Jeep, and the folks over at the Union Hall had gotten together, and they wanted to do something, kind of commemorate, celebrate, and so forth. And we decided, we had done car shows at the Jeep plant and at the Union Hall, had picnics and things like that over the years. But the collective mindset was that, hey, this is 75 years. We need to do something a little more significant than that. So we started talking with one of the county commissioners, Pete Gerken, the president of the local at that time, Bruce Baumhauer, and we decided we wanted to go, up a notch, if you will, with some type of an event. And shortly after a couple of meetings, we got involved with the Thread Marketing Group, Whitney Rothgar, and you and I have had we've been on the show together, and we put together what was basically a one-day kind of a celebration in downtown Toledo. And we weren't sure at that time whether it was going to be something that we would do every other year, every year, or whatever. But it turned out to be such a rip-roaring success that we kind of, decided it was going to be a yearly event until, ideas changed otherwise. So each year, we've tweaked it a little bit each year, and it's grown. Right now, it's 3 full days, and we have a half day on Thursday. We do an off-road. We don't have a lot of off-road access to downtown Toledo, but we have one of the dealers has an off-road test track with about 18 obstacles. So they have a kind of a welcome party up there, and then the next day we move the show to downtown Toledo, and we're at a point right now, Tony, where we're shutting down about 20 square blocks of downtown Toledo, including the major one of the major arteries that goes through the downtown right along the riverfront, and it's a unique kind of an arrangement. There's Jeep events all around. Jeep Beach. Both at Myrtle and down at Daytona. You've got Butler, the Bantam event. You've got the event down in Tennessee, Smoky Mountain. And what's kind of different about our event is that we're in a downtown.
Yeah, you're not going out in the middle of nowhere. It's downtown,
and there's some nice things about that. You've got amenities that you're not going to have out in the cornfield in Western Pennsylvania, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But the downside of that is if you want to park 5, 10, 53-foot trailers with awnings from our vendors and sponsors, it gets a little tricky
mm-hmm.
on downtown streets. But we've been managing, and we're on target this year to have another pretty interesting event for folks.
So I know this from the many years of interviewing you guys, you and Whitney, that the trick to get parking is to be in the parade and in the show and shine.
That certainly is an advantage,
So, you have to pay, but you're close to everything.
Well, basically, the other thing I have to, blow the horn of the group that has been operating this thing now for this many years is we have started from the beginning to try and keep it as low cost or free event as we can. And
there's no, if I remember correctly, there's no pay to go and see the show. It's only if you're going to the show and shine and in the parade that you pay, and it's a minimal amount.
We have I call it a nominal registration fee for it to be in the parade, or to have your vehicle in the show and shine, or to be in the specialty vehicle show in the convention center.
Mm-hmm.
But frankly, it's kind of like a placeholder, so we know who's coming.
Yeah.
And with that, you get the obvious advantage that you mentioned is this parking situation.
And you're close to the event, which is really cool.
And you park right in the heart of the event.
Right.
And there's, we do a goodie bag, and there's a T-shirt involved and so forth. So,
Well, and how cool is it to be in a Toledo Jeep Fest parade? I mean, you guys have over 1,000 vehicles in the parade. I forget what the limit is, but you guys always go over it. But how cool you can say, I was in the parade in 2026. So I show up on Facebook or, wherever you guys post that stuff.
Yeah, it's really, quite an event. Everybody that's been in the parade, it seems to enjoy it. And, the other thing that I think is a little bit different about our event is that it's TV broadcast. And we had a couple of had that actually did a webcast or posted it on their network, and they showed it internationally. We had some folks here 2 years ago calling from Romania, saying, "Hey, this is a real cool parade."
You've had people attend from around the world, right?
Yep, and we have a sister city in Ladrina, Brazil, and they have now started their own Jeep Fest. And they'll be they were at our event the last year. They'll be here this year. And, they're asking for people to come down to their event in Brazil. So, it's a unique event.
What you've started here. And also, too, I was going to mention earlier, it's gotten a lot bigger than 2016. It really blew up quickly.
Well, and I think, the other thing that makes it unique is that, Toledo, for all intents and purposes, you can have some arguments with folks about where the home of the Jeep is and where the Jeep was born. I'll concede right off the bat that Butler, Pennsylvania is probably, where the Jeep idea was born.
Mm-hmm.
But I can also proudly attest to the fact that it's been produced in Toledo since 1941, and it's produced there today. And from the investment that Stellantis is making, it's pretty likely it's going to be produced here for the foreseeable future.
Right. And
85 years this year.
And thanks to our current political structure, let's say that the federal government is encouraging the Jeeps to continue being built in America and not go into other countries. You mentioned earlier when you were talking about working for Jeep that you were working at the Canadian facility for a while. Did you travel back and forth, or did you actually live in Canada at the time?
No, I actually commuted.
That's what I thought.
kind of surprising if you live in Toledo and you have a job at the Chrysler Tech Center up in Auburn Hills. It's about a 90-mile drive.
Oh, wow.
Around, So Windsor, which is where the Pacifica and the minivans are produced, it's about a 45-minute drive. So it's actually less of your day being consumed getting back and forth to work, working in Canada than it is working here in the States.
My goodness. But it's probably a nice drive, too. You just have to dodge the mooses. The mooses. The mooses.
No mooses on that route, believe me. But it was not as inconvenient as it might sound.
Right. So let me ask you this. During the time, those 10 years that you were working for Jeep at the plant, what were the Jeeps that were being produced at that time? Would that be TJs and XJs and YJs?
I got to tell you, I was, the window of time that I was able to be there, I landed there in 1983. I'd worked for Ford for 15 years, went to AMC at that time. Actually, the American Motors, the real deal.
Yeah.
And we were building the CJ. We were building the Grand Wagoneer and the SJ, and we were building the J Series trucks at that time.
Yep, the full size vehicles.
Full size Jeeps, and then the CJs, and then in 83 we introduced the XJ Cherokee, and then not too long after that we built the MJ, Comanche, and we phased out some of the full size Jeeps and just retained the Grand Wagoneer, the Woody version, if you will. We built out the full size trucks, and there was when we built out the Scrambler and the CJ8s and then ultimately the CJ7, which we moved to Canada to the Brampton plant as the YJ that was first produced over there for 2 years, and then very quickly we were able to return the YJ back to the Toledo plant in 1991 when we built the last of the Grand Wagoneers. If you can believe it, that vehicle's been out of production since 1991.
Yeah, I'm surprised it was still being made at that time, because really I wasn't paying close attention to Jeeps until I got the XJ in 1998, and that's really when I started learning about the lineage of Jeep. Let me ask you this: so the SJ, what did you think about the XJ compared to the SJ? Because I would think there's a lot of people that say, the SJ was the first Cherokee. That's the real Cherokee.
Yeah, the senior Jeep, did have the Cherokee model, the big, the full size Jeep, if you will, and they did a pretty spectacular version. It was called the Wide Track, and it had the exposed fender flares, which were actually extensions of the wheel housing. They weren't, an add-on fender flare like they are on these vehicles today. And it had wide track axles, and they were very, very capable. You could get, the V8 engines in them. They had all the Dana, underpinnings and so forth. Pretty heavy duty stuff. Some of it in the 3/4 ton variety with those vehicles. And that was probably, in my estimation, that was the first of the Cherokees.
Right.
And then when you get to the XJ, the small Cherokee, it was a pretty remarkable vehicle. The difference is that the full-size Jeep was always a frame vehicle.
Right.
And the Cherokee was the first of the unitized. So it was a different kind of, construction process altogether, different type of suspension. It was definitely a dramatic change, whether you call it a Cherokee or an SJ, a full-size. It changed it far more than just the nameplate.
Oh yeah. So that's kind of my point. I mean, I know how I feel about the XJ, and 3 million other people know how they feel about the XJ. But I'm thinking, when the new Jeeps come out, we have a tendency to poo-poo the new one. Oh, that's not as good as this one. And this, so I was curious about what you felt about it. You're not working for Jeep anymore. So you can say, did you hate on the XJ when it first came out? Like, what the hell are these people doing?
No. In fact, I was pretty impressed with it because, having worked at Ford for those 15 years, I had already gone through a transition on the full-size Ford where it was a body-on-frame construction when we started to go unitized with the Fox body. In fact, it was the Fairlanes and Torinos first, and then the Mustang.
Right.
And you start to appreciate the construction and the rigidity of that body, and that it's quite a bit different. I mean, the whole concept is significantly different than a body-on-frame construction.
Right.
Where you have the body actually sits on top of a separate frame, and it's isolated, hopefully, from a lot of the road vibration and so forth. Whereas with a unitized vehicle, there ain't much between you and the road.
Right.
So, it's a very, very solid vehicle. They have the tendency to not have a lot of flexibility. You've seen the old pickup trucks or full-size trucks with a frame that they'll get them into such an articulation situation where the pickup box actually can hit the cab because of the individual articulation. Well, you're not going to get that on a unitized body because they are really stiff. I
was just going to say, though, because that's something similar that can happen with an XJ. If you've got it all twisted off-road and you make the mistake of opening the back hatch, you may not be getting it closed again.
Well, the newer ones, when the first couple of years with the XJ, there was an emphasis, hey, we got to make sure this thing is stiff, and we did.
Yeah.
And it was so stiff in some places that when it would get into a torsional situation and flex, that you could actually get a split in the corners, the upper corners, where the deck opening would meet to the roof line. And we made a couple of changes in that area with different types of steel and changing thickness and positioning of those corner patches and so forth to allow for more flex, which is kind of odd because the tendency is, hey, you want to make these as stiff as possible, and then when you get into an off-road situation, the contrary, you need to have some flexibility.
Yeah. I noticed when I put some stiffeners on the unibody, it's not the ones that wrap around the unibody. It goes along the side of the unibody, and then you do plug welds into it. But anyway, when I put those frame stiffeners on my XJ, oh my God, I couldn't believe about how much more solid the XJ was. And I think the deal is when you start modifying it and you start putting armor and things making it heavier, then the unibody is kind of struggling to maintain its stiffness because it's just thin pressed sheet metal. I've always liked frame makes more sense, but the unibody would allow you to save weight and save gas mileage, which I'm sure is one of the reasons why they were doing it.
Oh yeah, and don't forget the other things that changed on the Cherokee is you started to see high strength steel as a upgrade to the sheet metal.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, you had high strength steel in a lot of the components, and then the other thing, if you looked at the door opening on like a lot of the vehicles was a series of pieces that were welded together. And when you get into the Cherokee, we started to trend towards more of one-piece stampings, or what they actually did in the front door opening was a welded blank, where they would take and weld two different types of metal thicknesses and high strength versus more malleable into a single blank and then stamp it. So there was a lot of technical.
Jeep has always done extraordinary engineering. And especially when you start getting into the vehicles and making modification or just looking at how it's put together, they have done a fantastic job. Let me ask you this. I'm going to set you up, but I'm sure you've been asked this before, especially since you came from Ford. Now, you weren't at Ford when the Bronco was being made, but what's your estimation between the offerings from Jeep, the the JL, JLU, the JT compared to the Ford Bronco that everybody seems to love. And of course, I like seeing the social media where they're talking about Bronco is beating Jeep, and I'm like, well, yeah, if you're not taking it off road and you don't mind breaking a tie rod end when you do mild off roading, it's a great vehicle. I mean, it's a comfort vehicle. And it's wide, which those two things really just don't go together as far as my concern, as far as Jeeps. What's your opinion of the new Bronco, or are you even aware of it? Did you just blank it out?
When I was working at Ford, and I started there in '69,
mm-hmm.
and
now those were good Broncos back then.
And then I always leased a Bronco. I had and typically in '69. We're starting to see more of the F-150 based,
mm-hmm.
Broncos, which what I was driving, and I always liked that vehicle, but the new Bronco compared to a JL, I think it's a very comparable vehicle. I think it's very well engineered.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that I think are obviously they did their homework from a design standpoint. I can't imagine that they didn't tear down, hundreds of Jeeps.
Oh,
or
of
whatever.
Course. Yeah, absolutely.
That's the way that business works. But, and there's some nice features. There are some really nice features.
Yeah, there certainly are. But if you need comfort from an off-road vehicle, then you do not need a Jeep. I'm not saying Jeeps aren't comfortable, but that's not the purpose of an off-road vehicle.
Well, yeah, and even whenever when I first came to Jeep, one of the things that there was a study group that was always asking, how many people really take these vehicles off road?
Yeah. We talk about that here too.
We were always stressing that it's the capability, and if you take it off road, and at that time for certain vehicles, I mean. The YJ at the time when we started, the YJ was always taken, had a lot of exposure off road. The XJ, very little. I mean,
oh sure,
I think
that's a grocery getter, man. It's a station wagon.
Yeah, the first numbers that I saw on the Cherokee were like 96 or 97% of them never got off payment. And I think that's interesting because. The Jeep engineering people, it's in their system, in their blood, to have that off-road capability into the vehicle, whether you use it or not.
Yeah,
and that's why today we often laugh. I mean, the Cherokee been out of production since the XJ Cherokee's been out since 2001, 2002 in that time frame. So every one of those that you see out on the trail now today is at least 20, 25 years old.
They are quote unquote classic vehicles. Absolutely,
exactly. And the standing joke is because of with some minor modifications, some additional suspension travel, different kind of tires, usually pretty healthy gear set. You can build a reasonably priced, inexpensive in many cases Cherokee that will perform equally as well as some of these higher priced vehicles that we're driving on those trails today.
Right. So I've always maintained that the XJ is basically the same thing as the TJ. It just has a longer wheelbase because it's basically the same drivetrain. I mean, the transmission's different, but what's your thoughts on that? Am I wrong on that?
Well, you're not wrong on the dimensional aspect of it, but don't forget. The TJ is still a frame vehicle.
Oh no, absolutely, yeah. It's frame versus unibody, but I look at that as a plus. If you got a frame, it's better than being frameless and shameless.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you lay the dimensions of a long wheelbase TJ next to a Cherokee, you're going to find they're darn near identical.
Yeah.
But
they just didn't make many LJs. I mean, LJ is like the unicorn to find one. A lot of people are just stretching them. They get a TJ and stretch it.
That's actually what I call my LJ is on the hood, is where it would say Rubicon. It says unicorn.
Yeah.
Because they're different, and there weren't that many of them.
Right.
But,
weird looking Jeep too. I mean, Jeeps are already weird looking. It's like a Jeep is like only a mother could love type thing. But once you once you learn about what the Jeep can do, and especially when it takes you places that you have a hard time walking, you learn to love the look of the Jeep. But the LJs always looked funny to me. They just looked out of proportion.
Well, that's like the first time you see a CJ6. It looks like it's way out of proportion, and then you understand why it's like that. And
yeah, they're doing it not for aesthetics; they're doing it to make it good for off-road. And I love that about Jeep. I mean, Jeep is making other vehicles that aren't off-road vehicles, although they seem to have the trail rated badge anyway. I think the trail rated badge means that you can be drug off-road by a capable Jeep.
I'm not sure.
Like the Liberty. I hate the damn Liberty. And they came up with Liberty when they got rid of the XJs, bastards.
No, I'll tell you what. I was on a Jeep Jamboree, and there was one of those CRD diesels and I'll tell you what, it performed very, very well.
Oh, I'm sure.
It was kind of a surprise because. I think of the Jeeps that we've seen over the last 10 or 15 years, they were definitely the ugly ducklings.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're equipped properly, they'll perform.
Oh no, you can rebuild anything. You can make it right. But from the factory, and I think everybody agrees with this, the Wrangler and the Gladiator is a off-road vehicle straight off the factory floor. I mean, modifying it is fun, but you don't got to do that to be able to go off-road.
That's right. You don't have to do that.
Yeah. I mean, you have to learn how to drive off-road. but
that's one of the things, though, that I think is interesting. If you look at, if you take like an 82, 83 CJ, 7 or even a CJ8 Scrambler with a longer wheelbase, the vehicle dimensionally is relatively narrow. It's relatively high.
Mm-hmm.
It has a little higher center of gravity than these vehicles that we're driving now. But you park one of those next to a JL or a JT, and these new ones, and the Ford Bronco is the same thing. It's a huge vehicle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've got a Gladiator. I've got a 2021 Gladiator, and it is huge, even though it's a small for a truck. It is a really big vehicle and performs extraordinarily like an EJS. I mean, EJS isn't generally hard anyway because you're wheeling on sandpaper. But going down stair steps and stuff, especially with that ass hanging out there in the back end.
That overhang is be exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. What the hell was that? I hope I didn't need that. Somebody get on the radio. Anybody see any parts back there? I've got a full skid system on it now, and an aftermarket bumper, so I'm not worried. I just need to get back to EJS. Oh man, that is such a great thing. You've been to EJS, or you've been to Moab before, right?
I've been to Moab. I haven't been there during the Easter Jeep Safari, but I think that Moab, as you say, you can have a lot of fun there, and
you can even take a Bronco to Moab. It's easy.
I see. Or if you were there during the warm weather, you saw those people on a bicycle.
Yeah.
If you're really adventuresome, not me, man.
The first year I went, which was 2023, I believe, I saw a long stretch limo off road.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he had his limitations as to where he was and was not going.
He didn't seem to care.
Yeah.
There was a lot of cameras pointing towards him. So I know I know you really like XJs because you own one, at least one. But I heard a rumor that you got rid of it. Say it's not true.
Well, I sold it. Yeah, running out of room in the garage, Tony.
That's a good reason. That's a good reason. Have you ever had an MJ? I've always wanted the MJ. Once I found out that it was basically a Cherokee truck. And I just thought they were so cool. And then I found out that you could take what was the last year they made those things, 94 or something like that, maybe 91, 92. But you could take they redid the body style in 97, 96, 97 on the XJ, but you could pull out the dash, you could take the hood, the fenders, and turn that MJ into a 97 plus MJ.
Yeah, you could upgrade an MJ, significantly. And I see a couple of those on the market out there today. My favorite, when I was working at the plant, we had a pilot vehicle that was, it had the VM diesel, the Vitromotori Italian diesel. It was a 5-speed. And I would use it on weekends. My son was racing a go-kart at the time, so it made it great.
That's so dangerous.
Yeah, right. Made it a nice race vehicle. And with that VM diesel, it was a little 4-cylinder diesel. You could get, Jeep people will slap me when they hear this, but you could get close to 40 miles a gallon once you got it rolling in fifth gear.
Right.
It was not much on acceleration.
Our government has done a disservice to the American people by making it so hard to have diesel-powered vehicles, because diesels have always been a very fuel-efficient mode of transportation. Especially if you were a Volkswagen, you defeated the checks for the emissions.
Yeah. Well, anyway, but when you come to Jeep Fest, or Chris comes down, he's going to see just about every variation of the Jeep that's been produced, since 1941.
Well, this is great, because this is a great way for people that maybe are just getting interested in Jeep, or maybe they only know the modern Jeeps, to see the heritage, to see the DNA where all this stuff came from.
Yeah, and one of the guys that I work with, Brent Cutsley, he used to work at the Jeep plant also. He was a tooling engineer there. We go to a lot of car shows, and we shake hands with a lot of these Jeep owners, and we woo them to bring the vehicles to the exhibit in the convention center, because we try to get vehicles in there that a lot of the Jeep community, even some of what they call the real enthusiasts, have never seen.
Yeah.
And it's quite an eye opener for a lot of folks when they see the variations, the vehicles that Jeep has produced over the 85 years.
I'm sure you know a lot of them, but one of the ones I was really surprised to see was what was it called, the FC 100 and the 150. Man, those things are crazy. FC for forward cab, folks.
We had one last year before. A guy named Tom Shaw owns it, and it's he restored it, and there's two variations that Jeep produced. It was an FC 150, very short wheelbase, and then it was an FC 170, which was longer wheelbase, almost like a full-size 8-foot bed on it. And the FC 170 is like a CJ6. It's very awkward when you look at it. You just say, what's wrong with this vehicle? It's too long for what it looks. So he had this 150, and if you look at a 150, they're really pretty short. I mean,
it's weird. So weird.
The story is, if you don't have any load in the back, and you really crank down on the brakes, because you're actually sitting over the front axle, that you can do a rear wheelie, if you will, to get the rear wheels off. So he wanted to, rectify that situation. So he made some modifications, and he stretched the wheelbase on it. So we jokingly tell him he's got the only FC 160 in captivity. And what he did identify it is, in addition to having the cab over the front axle, right behind that, and the engine is literally right next to you.
Right, just like the old vans were. Yeah,
that's the engine, and then it's got a spare tire. Most of them had a spare tire on one side. Well, Tom put a spare tire on each side just for the added balance and a little extra balance.
That's a good idea.
In that back area, he's a really good engineering guy. But FC 170 and so forth. A lot of people have never seen those. There's also the FJ trucks. I don't know if you've seen an FJ truck.
I think, but go ahead with what you were going to say.
It looks like an old mail truck, or like a miniature.
Is that the one where the mailman would stand up in? They were really tall.
They had stand up setup, and they a lot of them were right hand drive because they were used for the mail, and then some of them were left hand drive as a regular delivery vehicle. But what's unique about them is they are mounted on a CJ3 frame, and that's how small they are.
Oh, it's a tiny vehicle. It's really tall, huge front windshield. I'm trying to remember. I think Greg Henderson, unofficial use only, was actually.
Greg, I think, had one of those.
Yeah, he was actually building one for somebody that for a to put a motorcycle, carry a motorcycle in the back, and I thought that was really cool. And then there was I'm forgetting the individual that was on the show. He's handicapped, so it was perfect for him for one of those, so he could get his wheelchair in there and then drive it.
Yeah, Dave Adams?
Adams. Yeah, I remembered Adams, but I couldn't remember the first name.
Yeah, that's the guy that's got that one.
Yeah. So it's a really, really cool vehicle. Oh, real quick on the FC, you remember the concept vehicle from like 2016 or something, don't you?
Yeah.
It was a more modernized looking FC. Yeah. Man, that was such a cool vehicle. You know, one of those FCs would be, I was just thinking that one of those FCs would be a great platform to put a barbecue pit on. You could drive out the EJS and cook barbecue.
It's really a great platform for a lot of things. There was also a prototype version of that was a like a van, was fully enclosed with side doors on it.
Yeah, I think I did see that.
They did a military version of it. It's called an M677, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
We had one of those at the show last year.
Neat.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, I think that if you take a Jeep and turn it into a van like that, you need to put free 10-millimeter socket on the side so you can suck in the Jeepers.
We'll have all kinds of varieties of the Jeeps there. A couple of years ago, we hooked up Rugged Ridge with. They had a development program where they would donate some of their accessories and so forth to fire departments or first responder type operations. And we have an outfit out in Morenci, Michigan, that they have a sweet vehicle. It's a Rubicon brush truck with set up to fight small fires and stuff out in the field or the woods. All 4-wheel drive, and it's got a little pumper set up on, similar to the old fire trucks, the old Willys fire trucks that you used to see. Mm-hmm. Built on a Rubicon chassis.
Right.
Nice.
So before we get too far away from this and I forget about it again, let me ask you, so rumor has it, and if you know something more detailed to this than rumor, I'd like to know, but rumor has it by 2030, the Wrangler, because I don't think the Gladiator is going to be around by 2030. I think they're going to get rid of it, much like they did with the MJ. The MJ only had a few years, the last Jeep truck before the Gladiator. But the rumor is that by 2030, all the Wranglers are going to be IFS, which to me is, I wouldn't buy a Jeep unless it had a solid front axle.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've seen that story or rumor or whatever you want to call it.
Okay, so you can't talk about it. Okay, I got you.
Well, I think you're going to see. I think you may see a variant of that before then, before 30, if they're talking about doing this new scrambler version for desert racing or whatever.
Right.
And that may have an IFS.
Because that's what everybody wants to do is desert race. I mean, if you talk about people not taking it off road, let's see if they're going to take it to the desert. I think they're looking for a reason to go IFS simply because of death wobble. They don't like dealing with death wobble.
I don't know.
You can pass. This is my opinion.
All I can tell you is that, again, this is not telling tales out of school, but about 1986 or 80, no, 95. There was some discussion about doing an IFS in Wrangler. And we actually built a prototype.
Sure, I can see that.
Vehicle at the plant, at Toledo plant. We had a very good working relationship with the Jeep design people, and they would work with us, and we had the capability there at the plant because of the stamping plant and so forth. That we needed to have some individual looking front frame member or whatever, we could do that. as opposed to going to, an outside engineering firm to do the design. So we built a couple of those, and they did their evaluation of them, and the decision basically pretty quickly was, hey, this solid front axle makes a lot of sense for the way we are using the vehicles today.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but my opinion has always been that the solid front axle is the cheapest and strongest thing that you can do for an off-road vehicle. It's not a desert racer. I don't give a rat's ass about racing on anywhere in my Jeep. I want to go. I want to be slow and curious. I want to take it off-road and go over things, because not everybody can do that.
And I'm not going to say that it's the cheapest and the strongest, but it's obviously cost effective, or we wouldn't be doing it.
Right.
And it's very strong. I mean, it can be built. I mean, you talk to any of the guys from Dana, and they can build you an axle that will do just about anything you want to do.
Oh, and I have no doubt that IFS can be made very, very strong, but it's going to cost you a lot of money.
Yeah. But I go back to my days at Ford, when one of the plants that I worked at built full-size Ford, Galaxies and so forth. And then we also had a truck plant attached to our facility that built they were F-100s at that time, before they went to the 150, and they had the twin I-beam, front suspension, which is kind of an IFS derivative that got a lot of moving parts. And if you are ever wanting to do an engineering study on tire wear, that's the kind of vehicle you want to put in your regimen for testing, because they're just the articulation of how those front wheels move. Again, there are some desert racer vehicles that have not a standard IFS, but a highly modified IFS with very centrally located pivot points and so forth.
Right.
They're really pretty amazing, and there's very little movement other than straight up and down when you look at those.
Yeah.
For desert racing, that kind of a vehicle kind of makes a lot of sense.
And I have no problem with IFS. I have no problem with anybody that wants to do anything different like that. Build a great thing. But to me, if I'm buying a Jeep, I want a solid front axle. I do not want IFS. Now, if I'm not taking it off road, the ride's going to be better. I'm not going to have to deal with death wobble, because it's just not something that you get with IFS. At least that's what I've been told. The Jeep could just simply put heavier steering components on the front of the Jeep, and it wouldn't have death wobble. I know Steer Smart's happy that they don't, because they sell stuff that you can put on there that's beefy as hell.
Yeah. I mean, the aftermarket obviously is very happy with the opportunities that they have on a Jeep for whatever reasons.
There's more. Yeah. So
I hear less and less about death wobble than I have for years. And once you've experienced it, you're not gonna forget.
Yeah, we always tell people that the little shaky steering wheel thing, that ain't death wobble.
That's not. That's exactly right.
Death wobble is when you thought you were going to die.
It was registered as a 45 MB, but it had been rebodied and so forth. But the frame itself was a 44 or 45 Willys, and you got rolling too fast. You were putting yourself at serious risk.
But you can't say too fast and Willys, because Willys didn't go fast.
Well,
unless there was you were going down a hill.
Yeah. Anyway, there's a ton of opportunity. I think that's one of the reasons that the Jeep is such a popular vehicle, because of the aftermarket and the interest.
Oh my God, the aftermarket is huge, just absolutely huge.
You come to the Jeep Fest parade, and if we have 1,000 Jeeps in that parade,
it's usually 1,200, because you guys can't. You guys don't know how to count.
I challenge you to see two of them that are the same.
Yeah.
in any way. You know, they might be the same color or the same year, but beyond that, I mean, it's a vehicle that you can put your own personal touches on, and a lot of people do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I guess
And there's
you know,
and you don't have to be a welder. I mean, I think knowing how to weld is a very good thing, but you can make so many modifications that are bolt on. I mean, you can literally do this in your garage or your driveway. Just take the proper precautions. All right, before we wrap up, Jerry, who's your Grand Marshal at Toledo Jeep Fest this year?
Yeah, well, we got to talk about the Jeep Fest there a little bit more. Brad Cowitz is going to be our Grand Marshal. Brad, as you know, is I call him the king of the YouTube, folks. He's I think he's a very well respected guy in the Jeep community. He does a nice job for all kinds of reasons. My personal interest is the guy's got a good veteran background, and he participates in a lot of the events with his son.
Mm-hmm.
I think he embodies the family aspect of the Jeeping thing. He's always emphasizing the environmental aspect. Get out there and have fun and be safe.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's what it's about. I think he's going to be a good representative for the Grand Marshal position. And I think he's going to have a lot of fun here at Toledo.
Oh,
Jeep
you
Fest.
know he's going to have fun. Now, you didn't say, but I just want to mention really quick. It's Brad from Trail Recon. So Recon is the channel, the YouTube channel. If you're not already aware of it, you should check it out. Beautiful videos, a lot of off-road type stuff. As Brad has gotten rich, he's using things that are other than Jeeps out there, like vans and things. So, but there's plenty of Jeep videos that he has there. So he's going to be the Grand Marshal this year. Is this your first year to have a Grand Marshal? Because I don't remember Grand Marshal before.
We've had a Grand Marshal just about every year for the parade portion of it, and it's it varies. I mean, Bob Roterdorf was the general manager for Jeep. The new guy He was here last year.
Oh, nice.
And he came down, and he had such a good time that I think that's one of the reasons that Jeep is one of our co-title sponsors this year.
They're getting more involved with stuff. I mean, whenever Tavares was part of Jeep, that they kind of pulled away from that, and I think that was a huge, a very bad decision on Jeep's part. But he's gone, and I think some more people that are more interested in Jeeps and the Jeepers and the individuals that actually buy Jeeps, they're getting more involved in things. Now, I think that you guys usually have one or two of the Jeep concept vehicles that are shown at Easter Jeep Safari.
Yeah, typically we're getting as many as 5 and 6 of the Jeep concepts. We've done this now, and we have enough contact that basically they give me a list of what's available, and we kind of pick and choose where we can.
Oh, that's nice.
And even one of the fellows that still has access to the old the vehicles that are in the Chrysler Museum inventory. We've been able to, the last couple of years, we were able to get, one or two of those vehicles as well.
Nice.
I don't know if you remember the Comanche Eliminator. It was a red short wheelbase with unique fender flaring and so forth.
Not off the top of my head, but folks, we were talking about the MJ earlier. The Comanche is the MJ.
Comanche is an MJ. So yeah, take a look. It's a Comanche Eliminator concept. You'll be impressed. But yeah, we've been getting more of those vehicles each year. They bring, and then the Jeep brand group will bring a lot of their demo vehicles that they have that runs the show circuit. Got to figure that the majority of the new car show circuit is over by the time Jeep Fest rolls around. Mm-hmm. So those vehicles are there.
And that's a good segue, because I forget, what are the dates for the Toledo Jeep Fest again?
Yeah, August 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. And the big days are, the 7th, it's a Friday evening. The 8th is the main day of activity, including the parade. And then on Sunday, we're open till about 1 o'clock. And we have the 4-mile race and 1 mile walk. it's all Jeep themed for the outdoorsy folks, and they have one of the most remarkable finishing medals. They've done a series of them that are have become quite collectible over the years. So there's some things that are going on new this year. Whitney and I have talked to you in the past. We always try to ramp it up a little bit. So one of the things we're doing this year is that we have this Glass City Crawlers group that is one of the main Jeep clubs in our area. They've got a block party that's in a parking lot down in the footprint of our event. It's it holds about 300 vehicles during the week for folks that park downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll have some car crushing, some balance beams, and some other activities where you can drive your Jeep. We have one of the things that we found is we have a guy in our community who's a fireman, who's a professional bodybuilder and whatever. He competes in the Arnold Schwarzenegger competition each year. And a couple of years ago, he was the world's strongest firefighter. That was his moniker or whatever. But he has Jeep themed his activity, so he'll run a little competition, I believe on Friday, and they've got a rig set up where, in fact, at one of our hype events, he used my LJ that it clamps underneath the rear axle, and the guy actually did like 7 squats. Raising the entire ass end of that Jeep up off the ground. He's also got a set of for guys that have changed a 37-inch tire out on the trail, and you have to put that flat back up on that tire carrier in the back. You get a sense of how well this guy does. But he's got a simulated axle with 37s on and a couple of additional plates that he'll be benching. And then there'll be a small competition along with that, and that'll be one of the Friday activities. And then our Friday, we have a concert downtown on the riverfront, and this year we're going to have a drone show. It's a Jeep themed drone show. You're going to see, I think, some visual displays that recognize 85 years of the Jeep production. Hopefully we'll get some silhouettes and some different grills and so forth.
That reminds me,
what they're going to be doing.
I was supposed to send Whitney a vector of the Jeep Talk Show logo, so that you never know. So that the drones could do the Jeep Talk Show logo for everybody to see.
and the other thing is a sweet activity outside of just the Jeep stuff that's going on is that this minor league baseball team that we have in Toledo is one of the more famous ones across the United States. It's called the Toledo Mud Hens. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that they're able to do from a management standpoint is a couple of times a year, and they're restricted, they get to rebrand. So they're going to be the Toledo Mud Chuggers again, and they'll have the Jeep-themed uniforms. We had some tire
really
track
cool.
With Jeep grills and so forth, and then they sell the merchandise. Obviously, I mean, there's got to be some marketing in this, but it's a fun event.
It's a family event too. Absolutely a family event. Stuff for the kids, all kinds of stuff. It's a great event that you go to.
Yeah, and a lot of events, they'll always say, "Oh, there's something for everybody." Well, we can say that and mean it. And in fact, there's a schedule out. If you go to our website at ToledoJeepFest.com and look up schedules, there's a schedule that has the activities and times listed, and literally there are some things that you can attend both at the same time. There's so much going on, and there's a couple of events that you overlook or whatever. We've partnered with the Toledo Metroparks, and we have a Jeep base camp that is just outside of our footprint. It's what is it, maybe 100 yards from where we Marshal and stage the parade. It's in one of the Metroparks, and they've got some really sweet campsites that are set up there.
Well, you know, Chris is going to be there. He's going to be out there in the.
Is he going to be at the camp, at base camp this year?
Thar Camper. I don't know if you've heard of Thar Camper. It's an inflatable camper, but he's going to be out there with a recent interview that we did with Thar Camper. Thar Camper.
Okay.
I always have a hard time with that. It's like the Air Camper without the E.
Okay.
So he's going to be out there with that. If you get a chance to check it out, if you're not familiar with that. So Jerry, you guys, you're talking about all these things that you do. You do things new. You add on to the event every year. Damn it. I think it was 3 years ago when I had a wonderful Jeep Talk Show $1 million idea, was having a Jeep honor badge if you were in the parade. And it hasn't happened yet. I asked Whitney about this, and she says, yeah, we've been talking to Jeep about it. I don't think you guys want to do it. If it's a bad idea, just tell me, and I'll stop bringing it up. You guys need an honor badge. They did an honor badge. I think this is right. They did an honor badge for EJS this year. And, you know, that's just EJS. I mean, EJS is a big deal, but this Toledo Jeep Fest, in the shadow of the Jeep plant, they need to put a honor badge for the Jeep parade, the Toledo Jeep Fest parade. I mean, it's great because you say, I was in the parade. Not everybody gets those honor badges. I mean, you'll probably be able to buy them on eBay, but still.
Well, and that's such a good idea that we're going to actually do that this year. You will be able to get an honor badge.
You're kidding me. This must have happened after I spoke with Whitney.
Well, you know, we might not be the fastest rabbits in town, but it's
this is great.
It's a good idea. We'll work it through. And yes, we've gotten a buy-in and Jeep.
Excellent. Oh, that's wonderful. I really so. I think so. Chris is going to have to get one. That's wonderful.
He'll have to sign up, and
I think he's going to be in the parade. I think he's going to be driving his Gladiator in the parade.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I had a chance to ride with him when we were down at Bowling Green in his Gladiator. He really likes that vehicle.
Yeah, I was talking to him yesterday. He's been doing a lot of modifications to it, including that camper I was telling you about. He just recently got the AEV lift and 35-inch tires and additional wheels on there, so he's getting it in the air and looking a little more Jeepy. So we were talking about it, and he said that the Gladiator's growing on him. He had a JK before, and when he was going to replace the JK, he actually thought about replacing it with another Wrangler. And he says the Gladiator's really growing on him. I love mine. I think it's wonderful. And also, too, like having something that isn't like every other Jeeper. It's kind of like the XJ. I mean, whenever I got the XJ, the TJ was really the way to go. And then, but we went with the XJ because it's a 4-door. And I mean, frankly, if the TJ had been a 4-door, we would have gotten a 4-door TJ for, to carry the family. But that didn't happen until the JKs came out.
Well, and I think that, folks, you get into a Gladiator, you understand what it is and how it works. There's a lot of advantages to that, and I think it's caught on a little slower than I think some people would anticipate. Mm-hmm. But I haven't talked to anybody that's got one that doesn't like it, and there are definitely some advantages. I mean, you can say, well, the bed's not that big. You can't do this. You can't do that. And I said, well, but it has a bed on it,
right? It's bigger than the one on the Wrangler.
Exactly. And, I see some, we're located here, just as you come into Michigan from Ohio or come from the South, we're the intersection of, 80, 90 and 75. So we see a lot of recreational type vehicles, and we see a lot of towing out here in our part of the country. I'm sure you do in Texas as well. Right. Everybody that I've talked to that has towed with a Gladiator is impressed with how well it tows compared to a Wrangler.
Jeep engineers do such a wonderful job. And keep in mind, I drove my XJ for 23 years. I have a single owner XJ, and I drove it every day for 23 years until I got the Gladiator. And I didn't lose the experience of driving my XJ when I got the Gladiator. The driving the two are very similar. And to me, that is the only thing I miss really is the sound of the 4.0. That 3.6 sound is not anywhere like the 4.0. The 4.0 sound is so unique. but it's still a Jeep. It's absolutely a Jeep from the XJ to the JT. All right, so we've talked about the Toledo Jeep Fest. We talked about a lot of interesting things having to do with Jeeps and the background that you have on Jeeps. And I think I say this every time that we get on here and talk, Jerry. We need to get you on whenever we can just talk about Jeeps and all the stuff that you've been through with the Jeeps for over the years. But you can learn a lot of this for yourself by going to the Toledo Jeep Fest coming up here in this August. And make sure that if you see Jerry, he's going to be in a golf cart streaming by. Wave him down, make him stop and say, "Hey, I saw you on the Jeep Talk Show."
Well, hopefully we'll be there, and we'll take time to chat with you. So, but seriously, I think you hit on a very positive note. When you at an event like this, you see a cool Jeep, stop and talk to the people that either own it. They'll be
happy to tell you everything that you want to know, and some stuff you never wanted to hear.
And exactly, some stuff you wouldn't have found out otherwise.
That's right.
Exactly. I mean, every Jeep is cool, but there's cooler stories with each one of them. So
Jeep people are not standoffish, and they want to share the information about the Jeep that they have because they're proud of it. And if you've always wanted to have a Jeep but you never got one, this is a great way of going out and being a part of the Jeep community and learning about the Jeep community. Very friendly, very helpful, and just be careful because you might buy a Jeep after going.
Well, that's also not a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing at all. But if they're scared of doing it. All right, Jerry, thank you so much for being here with us. Fascinating as always. And I'm serious. We need to get you on here and just talk about Jeeps the entire time. Some of that background hidden stuff that nobody knows.
One of these times, maybe I'll be able to sign on to when you got one of your panel discussions, and
our roundtable. That would be wonderful because that would give everybody an opportunity to ask you all those questions.
All
right, Jerry. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll see you guys at the Toledo Jeep Fest.
You're my friend. You're my new friend.